minimize that there. Okay. All right. So again, I kind of made this up. Again, biology not my strength. So we'll just call this the biology, right, review. And this review is on tissues and systems. And again, good plan to write that down if you're taking notes. So not a bad thing to do for you, but I'm also going to save this and I'll post it all to there afterwards. But it's not a bad thing to do. Okay, so I'm going in order of the notes that we did. So number one, we did something called level of organization. All right. And that's just how various tissues and various cells and various things are organized. So just to remind ourselves of that, if we have things going from the simplest type structures, what are the simplest structures that we studied in our body? The simplest starting point of all of the biological structures in our body. What's that first simplest thing? Yeah, we start with cells. So cells are that simplest thing. And now we're moving up to more complex. Does anybody know what the next one is? No, we learned the cell structure, but that's not what I'm thinking about here. Yep. Tissues. So different cells coming together to form tissues. All right? And we'll keep going on this. I'll come back to tissues. Tissues. If we put different tissues together, what can we get? Yep. Organs. Organs. So something that has a specific structure and a specific function. We put some organs together, and what do we get? This is kind of a tricky one because it really has a funny little thing to it. We call it the organ system. That's our digestive system or circulatory system. So it's the system that comes together. The organ system. Organ system. The reason I'm writing it down below is because I want to finish it off to the right, and I've got one more to do. System. And then in the end, you put all those organ systems together, and we have the organism. We have the thing that is alive that's doing its thing. And I'll put that in here. Organism. And I apologize for the scribbling at the end. Organism. That's supposed to be an O on the front. I want to go back to just tissues. All right? And maybe I'll use a different color here. I want to go back to tissues. Let's talk briefly about the different types of tissues that we've encountered. So what types of tissues can exist in our body? What types of tissues are there? What's in our body that allows us to do all things? Yep. Muscle tissues. Muscle tissues. Muscle tissue. Excellent. Other types of tissue. And again, I got to check a little bit. Yep. I think we got 4 on our list. Yep. Sorry? Nerve tissue. And yes, that's correct. It is on its own. Correct. Nerve. Nerve tissue. Next. The next 2 are kind of a goofy name. They're more of a scientific name, so I don't know if you'll get them or not. The one includes our skin, right, along with any other tissues that are exposed to the outside, so like on the interior of our trachea and on the interior of our esophagus and on the interior of our stomach. You're close. It's epithelial. Epithelial tissue, all right? Epithelial tissue. Epithelial tissue. And I'm going to just put here skin. It doesn't just include skin. Skin is a version of epithelial tissue. But again, like I said, the inside of our mouth would be epithelial tissue. The inside of our trachea that the air has to get in contact with. The inside of our intestines that the food is in contact with. Anything that we bring from the outside to the inside or that is exposed to the outside will be epithelial tissue, all right? And there's one last type, and I'm going to make a long line to bring it down over here. And again, this is kind of a goofy one. It's called connective tissue, and that encompasses all the things like bone and cartilage and all the stuff that kind of holds everything together. So connective tissue. Connective tissue. All right, so that's bone, etc., etc. I'm going to put here bone, etc., etc. Blood counts as a connective tissue as well. Okay, so that was kind of the first lesson that we did. I'm going to just move my screen down here. And now we then got into the different systems. So we will go with number 2. And the first one we did was digestive system. All right. And again, like I said, we're going to break this down into 3 groups. The function, what does it do? The main organs and disorders. In other words, what can go wrong? Function of the digestive system: breaks down food, absorbs nutrients, gets rid of waste. Breaks down food, absorbs nutrients, gets rid of waste. All right? Main organs. Main organs of the digestive system. What do we got? Main organs. The digestive system. Yep. That's correct. I'm going to start at the top. We put the food in. Yep. I'm even going higher up than that. The mouth. Mouth. Mouth can digest in 2 ways. What does the mouth do to the food, and how does it get the digestive process started? What does the mouth do? Yep. Chews. So chew, we call that mechanical. Mechanical breakdown, physically crushing it. Other way the mouth can get digestive started. Yep. Saliva, chemical, right? Saliva, chemical. Excellent. Next part, after the mouth, we make a swallow. What do we call that organ? Nope, that's where the air goes. We don't want food going down that pipe. That makes you cough. You don't want that action. Yep. Esophagus. Esophagus. Remember, esophagus has involuntary muscles. So I've just got here invol muscles. Involuntary muscles. You don't have to think about it. After you swallow it, it pushes that food down, right? That food goes down. Remember I said you could even stand on your head, eat something, the food's still going to get pushed into your stomach, up, right? Scientists or astronauts on the space station don't have to worry because gravity doesn't necessarily move the food into your stomach. The muscles do. Excellent. After the esophagus, where do we get to? After the esophagus, where's the food? Yep. Stomach. Stomach. Again, the stomach does 2 things. What are the 2 things that the stomach does? It does, but how? Acids. So acid with its chemically. Acid, again, that's a chemical. Oh, and I did put chemical up there. What's the other way? Yep. It does absorb a little bit of nutrients, but I'm not worried about that in this case. But it does. It'll absorb alcohols in the stomach. Other simple things can be absorbed. What does the stomach do to help all the food get mixed in with the acid? What's the term we use there? Yep, it churns it. It churns it. Churn, and again, that's mechanical. All right, so it churns it up. And when we're done that, oh, another thing that the stomach does is it stores. All right, it stores the food and holds it there until the intestines are ready and they've got some room, and then it allows it to all kind of go in. So it's also storage as well. After the stomach, there are other organs, but we're going to get into the, well, what is it? What did we see on the frog? The stomach led into the, which one? Try again. 50-50, and you struck out on it. Small and then large. Small intestines, all right? And the small intestines absorb nutrients. Oops. Nutrients. I apologize. Oh, that's just a mess. Nutrients. Blech. An absolute mess there. So small intestines absorb a lot of nutrients. And then large intestines absorb. What gets absorbed in the large intestines? This gets absorbed and returned back to the body. And if it doesn't get absorbed, it's not a very pleasant ending to the process. Yep. Nope. Nope. Bile gets put in by the gallbladder to help digest fats. But no, bile is not absorbed. Yep. More specific. Water. Water gets absorbed, which causes the feces to be, dried out. All right? It's a certain amount of water that's absorbed. If the water doesn't get absorbed, you have diarrhea. And all that water comes out with it, and it's just not pleasant, like I said. So the large intestine absorbs water. All right? And the very end, and like I said, one of my favorite lessons, the anus. Awesome. All right? And as we were talking about, again, another one of my favorite lessons, controlled by a sphincter, which is a muscle that tightens and closes the end of the process. All right? Okay, so let's talk just a little bit about disorders. We haven't had a chance to do that much, so I'm adding a little bit of information here. What can affect the digestive system? What kind of disorders can happen? I've already mentioned one. Yep. Diarrhea. I had to look it up because I have no idea how to spell it. D-I-A, 2 R's, H-E-A. Diarrhea. The large intestines, due to probably some kind of infection like a bacteria, a bad bacteria gets in there, isn't allowed, or for some reason the water isn't allowed to be reabsorbed, and the water comes out and the feces is very runny. Can be very dangerous in third world countries, especially where they don't have a lot of water, especially to young malnutritioned children. You get diarrhea, you can even die from it because you're completely dehydrated, your body doesn't have enough water. Any other knowledge of any other digestive system defects? Yep. Nausea, I would say, I would agree with that, but that's really more of a symptom of a situation. Like you could have food poisoning, you could have all that type of stuff, but I'm thinking about a different one, and I'm thinking about, yep. Yeah, constipation would be not enough water in the system, that type of thing. But again, that would be a symptom. Let me write down an example of one. Crohn's disease, C-R-O-N-E-S. Crohn's disease is a situation where the interior of the intestines don't function properly. They can be inflamed. The nerves can be stimulated, so you constantly have pain in your abdomen, and it can be very difficult because you constantly feel you have to go to the bathroom and you want to try to relieve that pain, but it doesn't, and it's simply kind of like I said, this aggravation of the intestines. And it can be quite an unpleasant scenario, and it can be chronic. You can take drugs to try to alleviate. Ulcers might also be a symptom, but I'm going to just write it in here. Ulcers. So excessive acid in the stomach. What is the reason for ulcers? Scientists have been working for years to try to figure that out. Some people say sometimes stress produces too much acid, but I think they're discovering, again, it's a bacterial thing that then kind of unbalances the bacteria in the stomach, thus allowing the sores to form in there. Okay, so that brings us to the end of the digestive system. I'm going to add a page. How do I add pages with this? I'm looking for a plus sign. Oh, I wonder if I can do it with an arrow. Ah, nice. I can do it with the arrow. Good. Okay. So Next system we talked about, this is number 3 because we started with the organization, the circulatory system. Circulatory system, all right? Again, function and main organs, and again, disorders, all right? Function of the circulatory, whoops, I didn't want to do that. Let's get rid of that. Function of the circulatory system, to transport substances around the body. Transport substances around the body. Things like nutrients and O2 to the cells. Nutrients and O2 out to cells, and waste and CO2 again out of the body. And waste and CO2 out of the body. Somebody asking what I'm writing here? Substances. Transports substances around the body. Yeah, I apologize. This is not the most ideal way to write notes, but I can post that online when I'm done, and then you can go back and look at it. Okay? I'm seeing some people not taking notes. I'm not going to get too excited about it. I'm going to post that online, so hopefully then you can look at that as well. Okay? All right, main organs. Main organs of the circulatory system. What do we got? Yep. The heart, correct, very good. Yeah, I'll do that one first. The heart. All right, and the heart, I'm just going to put in here, that thing is it's a, oops, double, oh, I'm really struggling here today with my spelling. Dual, I want dual. It is a dual pump. It is a dual pump system. There's 2 pumps in it. One pushes out to the body, to the fingertips and the toes, and the other one pushes to the lungs. So it's pumping either to the lungs or out there. Other parts of the circulatory system. What else do we have in the circulatory system? Yep. Lungs, part of the respiratory system, but they're very important in that they bring that gas in and out, so it works closely with the circulatory system, but technically not part of the circulatory system itself. Veins. Veins and arteries. So I'm going to start with arteries, just because that's the order I have it. Arteries, and then the other one underneath it is veins. And which way did the arteries move things? Sorry? Outwards. Outwards from the heart. So they're the ones moving out. Whether it's out to the fingertips or out to the lungs, they're the ones leaving the heart. So we're going to put here, I put blood carried away. So it carries blood away from heart. All right? Underneath here, I'm going to put another one. They tend to be thick, and they have a muscle because they control the pressure. So they are high pressure. They're high pressure because it's being pumped away. The next one, veins. Did I get that backwards? Is it IE or EI? EI? I have it wrong on my note here. Veins, and veins carries blood towards the heart. And what's its pressure like? What's its pressure as it returns? Low pressure. It's under low pressure. It's now done its job. It's heading back under low pressure. And therefore can be thinner, right? pressure, can be thin. Okay, and we've got one more structure that's in between the arteries and the veins. And what do we got? What do we call that? What do we call that little structure that's at the end? Yep. Capillaries, however you want to say it, it's not a big deal. Capillaries, and I got to take a look here. Capillaries. And capillaries are very thin. They're small / thin. They're super thin. And this is where the nutrient and gas transfer takes place. They're right up against the cells, so they're right at the ends, and they're giving those nutrients away. So at the capillaries, nutrient and gas transfer. Okay? Now, there's one main, really important thing that we haven't listed yet. It is probably the most important organ, even though we don't consider it an organ, but it is, yep, the blood. Of course, we've got blood. And blood has some important different features. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. What parts are found in the blood? What do we got in the blood? What are our different types? I'll go to Kate every time. I really don't care. If anybody has anything, that'd be great. What do you got? Oh, we know what it does, but we need the parts. There's 4 different cell types. Yep. Red blood cells. Slow down. I got to write them all down, man. I can't go that fast. Red blood cells. Red blood cells. What do they carry? The red blood cells carry one thing, the most important thing. Red blood cells carry this. It's what makes them red. Add this to the blood cell, it makes it red. Take it away, it makes it bluish. Yep. It's oxygen. Carries the O2. Carries O2. It doesn't carry the CO2 back. The CO2 comes back in a different part of the blood. It just kind of flows with it. Another blood type part. Another blood part. Yep. White blood cell. White blood cells. They don't carry anything in particular, but what do they do? Yep. Yeah, they attack infections. They clean things up. They're part of our immune system. So attack infection. Attack infection, whatever it is. Okay, next thing might be in the blood, or is in the blood. What else? What else we got there? Yep. Plasma. Excellent. Plasma. This is where the CO2 kind of hangs around. It just goes into the plasma, but that's not part of what I'm going to write here. What part of the blood is the plasma? Anybody remember this? Yep. It's the liquid part. It's not a solid. It's just the liquid. It makes up most of the blood. It's mostly water. It is the liquid part. Liquid part. Everything else kind of floats around in the plasma. One last thing. A very important part, or we would all bleed to death when we cut ourselves shaving. Okay, maybe not to death that way, but if we cut ourselves, significantly. What are these parts called? Kate? Platelets. Platelets. Oh, and I better check my spelling. Platelets. As easy as it gets. And it clots the blood. All right? It allows for that clotting to take place. Okay, I'm now going to head back up to the top here to our disorders. What kind of things can affect the circulatory system? Yep. Blood clots, you mean in the blood that maybe get to the heart and cause an issue? That's true. I'm not going to write that down, though. But you're right. That is a true situation, and that can have an effect on the pumping of blood. But I don't want to put that down because I'm looking more for kind of a catastrophic thing. But you're correct. I would accept that on a test. If I wanted disorder and you wrote down blood clotting, I would say you bet. Good job. Yep. Hemophilia, where it doesn't, where you don't have blood clotting. Hemophilia is very rare, right? Not a lot of people have hemophilia. I wasn't going to write that down, but I guess it's okay. You know why I didn't want to write it down? I can't spell that. How do I spell hemophilia? Are you kidding me? I'll give it a shot. Hemo. Now, is it an I, an E? Philia. Right? In other words, no clotting. All right. Yeah, that's a good one. I like hemophilia, I guess. I was afraid of the spelling. What else? Yep. Heart problems. Heart attack, right? Heart problems. I'm just going to put a heart attack. Heart attack. Does anybody know the symptoms for a heart attack? Anybody know some of the symptoms? Yep. Pain in your chest, obviously. I've heard of aspirin, because aspirin thins the blood. It's aspirin. Yep. Anybody know any others? Oh, as a symptom of a heart attack? Oh, you're talking about more disorders. Let's talk about the heart attack, Bill, for a minute. Diabetes, I think, is a digestive system situation, because it's not producing the right insulin. But then I guess then the glucose can't get into the blood. I'm not sure. That might be a little bit of both. It does affect blood pressure, but I think that's a secondary thing. I think diabetes is quite a complex one. Yeah, I think that's a complex thing. Let's talk about a heart attack for a moment. Yep. You get a pain in one of your arms. I don't know which arm. Left arm? Left arm? All right. Oh, good. I can ignore those pains in my right arm then. I believe nausea, right? Nausea and also heavy sweating. I believe heavy sweating. I just want to talk a little bit about one thing. How do they test to see if your heart is functioning properly? Does anybody know what that test is called? What they'll connect to you in order to check to see if your heart is working properly? Anybody know what that thing is called? No, not a heart rate monitor. That's not what I'm looking for. It's called an EKG. All right. So they can test to see if your heart is functioning from an EKG. EKG. It is an electrocardiogram. It is an electrocardiogram. If you've ever seen the movies where it goes boop, boop, right, and it does that little squiggle and then up, that's an electrocardiogram. If your heart is not functioning properly, the electrocardiogram would indicate that. All right? Okay. Another situation that can happen, and this typically happens in the brain, a blood vessel breaking in the brain. What is that called? That could, if it's a, yeah, it can be an aneurysm. That's right. It's an aneurysm. Very good. I don't even know how to spell aneurysm. That wasn't the one I was thinking of, but I'm going to write it down anyway. An aneurysm. All right? Broken vessel in the brain. What if you get a clogged vessel in the brain? Like a heart attack is caused typically by a clogged vessel in the heart. It's a stroke. It's a stroke. So, again, another one that you can have if you've got a blocked vessel in the brain is a stroke. Blocked vessel in the brain. So if it's a blocked vessel in the brain, oxygen can't get to parts of the brain, those cells malfunction, and that part of the brain can't function, and that's why some of the symptoms are slurred speech and can't stand up and, you know, that type of thing. Yep. What's that?
If you're like an old person taking like blood thinners, and you can actually sneeze and rupture blood vessels in your brain, and it'll kill you. Like,
the blood thinners are trying to combat the clotting, right? And then yes, that makes you susceptible to a bleed out. Like if a little vessel were to break, then you wouldn't have, your platelets wouldn't function as well because you've got blood thinners, and that would be a situation. Yep.
Well, what like happens in your brain, like causes like Alzheimer's?
I'm not sure. That is, and they're not sure.
Cause like, my grandpa,
Yeah.
I think it's that.
Yeah, it is, I believe that they think it is not a blood scenario, but that it is the nerves themselves malfunctioning for some reason. And it's not because that they don't have enough blood to them, but there's something happening to the nerves themselves. So the actual nerve cells that are responsible for things like memory and where you put things and how you do things are failing for some reason. So I don't think that that would be counted as a circulatory system issue. That's a nervous system issue, I believe. Again, I'm out of my comfort zone. Yep. Cardiac arrest. Yes. Yeah. Well, but that might be a symptom of many of these things. But you're right. Cardiac arrest. I'm out of room, but I got lots of that. That would be a good one as well. Nothing wrong with that. Okay. Let's continue on and talk about. And I'm going to add another page. So the next system we did was respiratory system. So what number I'm on? Number 4? Respiratory system. Respiratory system. Again, function. Function. And main organs. And disorders. So function provides O2 to the body. Provides O2 to the body. And you're correct. And rids the body of waste CO2. Rids body of waste CO2. All right. Main organs. Main organs, yep. Yeah, lungs. Let's go in the order in which the air travels down, though, into that. So we'll put lungs later on. So I'm not concerned about the nose and the mouth. I'm not concerned about that, right? But that's where it goes in. Let's start at that point on down. What's that first main tube that is going down our neck here? Got lots of cartilage in it. Any ideas? What's that tube called? Yep. Trachea. The trachea. Trachea. All right? And that's that main tube. It's much different than the esophagus. The esophagus actually goes in behind the trachea. The trachea is designed to stay open because we need that air to be able to go down. The esophagus is designed to pinch. The trachea has lots of cartilage in it. If you rub your neck here, right where your voice is here, if you rub that like that, you can sound funny, that's fun. But if you rub that, you can feel the little ridges of cartilage. Come on, Max, you know you want to do that. You want to check that out. You feel the ridges of cartilage? It's almost like a vacuum hose. Is that too much pressure? You might choke yourself. Yeah, okay. So listen up. If you've ever seen a vacuum hose, to prevent the vacuum hose from collapsing, they put that ring of metal in there, right? Same thing with the trachea. It has that cartilage to prevent that from just collapsing in when you're taking a breath. Or if you get struck there, it protects it a little bit. It can be crushed. You could break that cartilage. So you could have a situation where you would have damage to that. If your whole upper part is blocked, they can save you by giving you a tracheotomy, by cutting a hole into your trachea and putting a tube in there, and then you breathe out of that tube right there instead of out of your mouth, all right? You actually wouldn't be able to speak because you wouldn't be able to push air through the vocal cords, which are up higher, the trachea. So if you tried to speak, all the air would push out of your neck, and you wouldn't be able to speak. So actually, people who have a tracheotomy, if they want to speak, they've got to cover that hole with their thumb. Some people have a permanent tracheotomy. It depends on what is causing the damage, right? If you have some kind of cancer of your throat that makes it so damaged that the air can't travel freely, then they'll put a tracheotomy in there and leave it like forever. Correct. It'll have a plastic insert. Stephen Hawking, the scientist who has the muscular disease, he can't work those muscles anymore. He has a tracheotomy in there, and that's where he breathes. He breathes through that. You bet. Yeah, go ahead. Question, Tyson?
Like, well, what is it? I dropped that.
Okay.
What is it when they have like that like boxing, they put it up to the throat and they talk?
I'm not sure. That could be a similar type situation.
That's what I thought it was.
It could be a similar situation. Where'd that thing go?
I think it went over the cart.
Don't move my cart. Remember to pick that up. Okay. As we move down from the trachea, we get down to the bronchi. Remember those, come on folks, let's stay with me here, people. This is the only way I can do this review. There's really no other way to do this than us to talk about it. So remember the bronchi, they go off left and right, and they ultimately get to the lungs, right? So these are like the left and right branches, left/right, and then you're down into the lungs, lungs, and in the lungs you've got more and more branches, tinier and tinier branches, little bronchioles they call them, but we didn't label those. And in the end you get down to the smallest pieces called the alveoli, and the alveoli are these little sacs, all right, that where the air exchange takes place. And I'm going to just put here, surrounded by capillaries. All right, so this is where the respiratory system comes together with the circulatory system, surrounded by capillaries for maximum diffusion of gases. And I'm not going to state which gases because the O2 will be coming in and the CO2 will be heading out. All right? Before I talk about disorders, I just want to add on to this. We did talk about it in our note, breathing. All right? Breathing, when we breathe, two things have to happen. What do the ribs do? When we breathe in, inhaling. Inhale. What happens? When we inhale, what do the ribs do? What's that? Do they contract? I wouldn't say they contract. The muscles contract. All the muscles can only contract. The ribs raise up, right? And the diaphragm, which is the muscle on the bottom, moves down. That's why your stomach comes out, right? And when you exhale, your stomach goes in because the diaphragm moves up. So the ribs move out, and the diaphragm moves down. All right? And when you exhale, the ribs move in and the diaphragm moves up. All right? Moves back up. Disorders. Some of you guys are writing away. So ribs in. And actually, better would be ribs down. Sorry about that. Ribs move down. And then the diaphragm moves up. Okay. Disorders. Things like tuberculosis. All right, and that's a bacterial infection. Something called SARS, severe a respiratory syndrome, it doesn't matter. And another one, well, obviously cancer. You could put down cancer for pretty well every one of these systems. There's a cancer of every system. You could say a cancer, but obviously I'm thinking of lung cancer there, obviously, for that one. Okay, so respiratory system, not too complex. Okay, let's get a new page, and we're down to one of our last systems here, and that is actually, I've got two more, but we just learned about them. The musculoskeletal system, that's the one we did on Monday, and the nervous system. So here we are, number five, musculoskeletal system. Again, function, main organs, and disorders. All right. Function of the musculoskeletal system: support the body and provide movement. Support the body, provide movement. Main organs. All right. So what's in the muscular system? We just saw this the other day. I'm hoping we would get a few more hands up on this one. Yep. Muscles, bones. Yep, muscles. 3 types of muscles. What were the 3 different types of muscles? Yep. Cardiac. Cardiac. Rhythmic pumping. Yep. Voluntary and involuntary. Voluntary and involuntary. Voluntary, we move around, right? We decide to lift a cup to our mouth. We decide to wave at somebody. Involuntary, esophagus moves the food down into the stomach churns, these intestines do their thing. We don't even have to think about it, okay? Breathing really is involuntary as well. Other things other than muscles. What else do we need in the musculoskeletal system? Well, we've got muscles. They're written down right there, muscles. No, what's that? And what's in the skeleton? Bones. Bones. Again, bones, they were a matrix of calcium and other things. All right. Other things. What else is in there? Yep. Ligaments. Ligaments. What did ligaments connect? What did ligaments connect? Bones to bones. Ligaments connect bones to bones. I'm just going to put here bones to bones. What else did we have from Monday? Yep, Cade? Cartilage. Come on, folks. For many of you, you're going to go home, you're not going to lift a finger to study anything. Are you? Oh, well, that's good. I'm glad you are. For those of you who don't, this is your studying. I'm studying for you. But you're going to go and lift a finger? You're going to do some studying tonight? Nice. Nice. Let's keep going. What did we say? Cartilage? Cartilage. Cartilage doesn't necessarily connect anything. Where do we find the cartilage? Between bones. Between bones. And 2 other kind of funny spots. Where else do we have cartilage in our bodies? Yep. Nose and trachea, but that's between bones. And ears. Nose and ears. Nose and ears. All right. Other parts of the system. Yeah, what do we got? Tendons. Tendons. What do they connect? I always think of the Achilles tendon. What's that? Muscle to bones. Muscle to bones. And I think that's everything. I think that's everything. Remember, muscles can only contract and relax. They can't push. They only contract and relax. Disorders, we didn't talk a lot about disorders. To be honest, the only one I could think of is cancer, right? But there are many. You can have a situation where your cartilage is weak and it breaks down. I guess arthritis would count as that, arthritis. I could put that down. Arthritis. Anything else? Bone issues? You're going to tell me some weird fact about some bizarre bone explosion, spontaneous bone explosion? Is that what you're going to tell me about, Pat? What do you got? No, I know that they say that when a teenage or when a adolescent is growing very quickly, you can actually feel some pain in your bones. Like a cramp, I would think would be a muscular. Oh, but you're right. I guess cramping of muscles. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I would agree with you. So if you have a muscle spasm or a cramping muscle that is completely contracting and not releasing, I would agree. I'd agree. Yeah, that makes sense. Yep.
So that's like the same reason why you're sick with knee lock or something.
Yeah, so there'd be maybe a cartilage issue there so that it's not smooth anymore and there's something that's clicking together and holding together. That could be a cartilage issue. Yeah. You wanted to add something?
Would a old or torn muscle be part of it?
So yeah, breaking down of that thing. I was thinking of something more chronic. I don't know, and again, I don't know of any terms like, some people have a situation where, muscular dystrophy. That's exactly what I'm trying to think of. And that again is a weakening of the muscles, correct? Yeah, so muscular dystrophy would definitely be one. Again, my spelling is horrendous, so I apologize for that. Muscular dystrophy. I think it's an atrophication, dystrophy. Multiple sclerosis, I believe, might be a similar thing, but that might be a nervous system issue. Now I'm way outside of my knowledge. That's nerves, that's sensitive nerves, maybe. Again, we're outside of my realm. Yeah. What do you got? Dystrophy? Yep. I don't know. We're so far out of. We would have to do some Google searches on it. Yeah. It can be a chronic just disorder where for some reason maybe a genetic situation kicks it in and it starts and it just goes. No, I don't think that would be the case. But again, we're outside of my realm of knowledge. Okay, let's do one last one here. The nervous system, and then I'll be done. What am I on? 6. Thank you. I knew someone would be paying attention. Nervous system. Nervous system. Function. Main organs. And again, disorders. And the function is, why do I make my writing so small? Connects the brain to other parts of the body. Connects brain to other parts of the body. All right. And coordinates movement and all of those functions, but I'm going to just leave that as there. So main organs. What do we got for main organs? Yep. The brain. The brain. And what kind of goes along with the brain? Yep. Spinal cord. Spinal cord. What did we call that when we put the brain and the spinal cord together? What was that? What was that called? What part of the system did we call it? That's the central nervous system. Central nervous system. Give it a rest, guys. Give it a rest, please. Again, brain protected by the skull, and the spinal cord protected by the vertebrae, or the backbone, correct? The vertebrae. Vertebrae, or the spine would be fine. The spine, I didn't need that particular thing there. Okay. And again, it had that cerebrospinal fluid in there to protect it as well. Other organs we've got down there, we had branching nerves. Branching nerves. And we called that the peripheral nervous system. And I think it's a PH and I screwed that up. Peripheral nervous system. peripheral nervous system. Okay. And in terms of other organs, obviously nerves. Nerves. I'm just going to put down here we had voluntary. They control voluntary muscles. Voluntary muscles. Nerves can control sensory receptors. Sensory receptors. That's how we sense things. And they're also in charge of involuntary function. And again, when it came to disorders, we didn't talk about any disorders, and I couldn't find any, and I put here, I guess we could Google some, but some people said fibromyalgia. I believe that's sensitive nerves, so I like that one. Fibromyalgia, I don't know how to spell it. And what else did we say? Multiple sclerosis, MS, I believe, is also nervous. MS. Any other nervous system ailments maybe that you might know of? Yep. I would say Alzheimer and Parkinson's would be nervous system. I agree. Parkinson's, again, very unsure about what's causing some of that stuff. I don't know how to spell this. It's terrible. A-L. Is it a T? Is it alt or is it? Isn't it got a Z in it? Alzheimer's. I don't know how it starts. We could Google search it, but I'm not even gonna try to do it. I'm putting this online. I don't want to embarrass myself. I'm not even gonna try to put that, but Alzheimer's would go in there as well. Yep. Oh, epilepsy. Yeah, a very good one. Epilepsy. Again, my spelling. I'm exposing my crappy spelling to the internet when I put these videos out there. Yep. Probably. I would say that type of thing as you wiggle your leg there very desperately. Like when you're sleeping and your legs move. I would think that would be a nervous system situation. But still, your nerves are ultimately telling those muscles to do something, right? The muscles aren't doing it unless the nerves are telling it to. I'm going to shut this down right now. I will take more questions and comments, but I'm going to stop my video and save this so I can put it online. At this point, I do have a sheet that's on Google Classroom as a review sheet. So hopefully you can go through that sheet as a review. I will tell you right now, I forgot to put the frog picture on the review sheet. So you're going to want to take a look at your frog picture when preparing. So let me just shut this system down here, and then I'll take any more questions that anybody might have. Okay, I'm going to stop this.